Hello, everyone. We just got done at 12 o'clock watching Dances with Wolves. We have my dad here. We are fresh off. We are ready to analyze. John, this is not one that people are going to miss.
Nope,
So don't miss it. Coming right up. Let's talk movies, everyone. Today, we did you a favor and watched a gargantuan mammoth of a movie that was literally 4 hours long. We have not done that since the Alexander episode, but luckily, this was not literal torture, seeing as how this was an actually good movie.
Yeah.
Today, we are proud to welcome our guest, my father, Wes, to talk about his favorite movie, Dances with Wolves. Anything you'd like to say to our vast audience?
No, I'm just glad to be here, guys.
Alright.
John, you wanna give us the intro on this movie?
Yep. So this movie, we'll talk about the plot summary first, kind of, or premise. So this movie is about this guy named Lieutenant John Dunbar, and he's a lieutenant. I don't know if he's a lieutenant at the beginning.
He is a lieutenant.
Is he?
Yeah,
Okay. He's like an officer in the Union
well, he does
Army.
get a promotion after the first scene. That's
So I think he would have been something below a lieutenant at the beginning.
But for most of the
he's an officer in the Union Army, or a soldier, whatever you want to call him, in the Union Army.
No, I think they call him a captain.
At the beginning.
Okay. So he's a captain at the beginning. He's a soldier in the United States Army, fighting in the Civil War in Tennessee, and he goes through this whole thing where he tries to kill himself by kind of riding across a battlefield. Somehow he survives this incident. He's deemed a hero, and he gets to go to anywhere he wants. So he asks to be sent out to the frontier because he wants to see it before it's gone. And this whole plays a whole big theme in the movie. And so he gets sent out there, and he goes out to this post, and the post ends up being abandoned. And so he kind of keeps it up himself for a while. And eventually he runs into these Lakota Indians that are nearby, and he develops relationships with them after at first, thinking that they would be hostile. He becomes really good friends, and he eventually becomes part of their community. He meets this white woman that had been raised by the tribe after her family had been killed. Her name is Stands with a Fist. And he develops a real big relationship with the medicine man. What's his Kicking Bird. The chief's name is Ten Bears. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and so he basically becomes a part of this Indian Lakota tribe out in Colorado, and eventually, however, bad things start happening as the Union Army or U.S. Army starts coming onto the land, and they want to. They have plans for the land, and they want to get a hold of it.
They got big plans.
It doesn't involve letting the Indians kind of get off scot-free. And so this kind of throws a wrench into the whole situation. So that's kind of what this movie is all about. And then we'll do some specs. Let me pull up my
And after we do the specs, we'll get into the positives. And I'm just going to go ahead and let y'all know, if y'all haven't seen this movie, this is an S-tier movie. Oh, yeah. Easily. Yeah. Unless you're Noah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
S-tier. So it's popular online to do ranking lists of stuff. I'm sure you've seen these videos where they rank stuff. But if it's higher than A+, then it's S-tier.
Oh,
but I don't know. Its own I don't know what S stands for.
Yeah, I don't know. Superior maybe.
Spectacular. Yeah. I don't know. But it's an S-tier movie for sure.
So this movie is directed, of course, by Kevin Costner. The screenplay was written by a guy named Michael Blake. He adapted it from his own book of the same name. It was produced by Costner and a dude named Jim Wilson. It stars, of course, Kevin Costner.
Of course.
In the title role, Dances with Wolves. This is his Indian name. By the way, if I didn't mention in the premise, he gets the name Dances with Wolves from his Indian.
Because he chases a wolf.
Because he chases this wolf named Two Socks that he also becomes friends with around a field, and they see it and they give him that name. So that's like his Sioux name, as they would say. And so it stars him, it stars Mary McDonnell, Graham Greene, and Rodney Grant. Cinematography was by Dean Semler. It was quite good. It was edited by Neil Travis. The music, which was also really good, was by John Barry. The production companies were TIG Productions and Majestic Films International. It was distributed by Orion Pictures. This movie came out in 1990 on October 19th, and then it went kind of into wide release on November 9th. And we were talking about how so you don't know if you saw this in the theaters.
I can't.
Obviously, he's the only one that was alive.
Yeah, I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That
This
dates
is
me
an
a little
old
bit.
movie
Yeah.
then.
So the original cut of this movie runs at over 3 hours, 181 minutes. We watched the extended cut, which had like 50 minutes, I think,
17
of extended.
and a half hours.
It was
really
like
long.
3 hours and 50 minutes. But some of the scenes were pretty cool. And this was an American movie, and it actually has several different languages that are spoken. Lakota, obviously English is spoken, but also Lakota and Pawnee are spoken by the respective Indian tribes. And that movie actually didn't have that big of a budget. It was only $22 million. Like, that's
Wow.
not small, but for this like epic size of
Well,
a movie.
22 million back in
Back in 1990, obviously you have to be relative, but it made like $424.2 million.
Oh my gosh. That might be one of the best like returns we've ever reviewed on the
Yeah,
channel.
I know, yeah.
So I heard that Kevin Costner put like $3 million of his own money.
Yeah, because he had a hard
But
time.
he got like $40 million return.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I've always wondered how that works when you produce on your movie that you're in. Like, it's like you're
I guess
paying
you
yourself.
set the interest rate.
Yeah, I know.
Just as a side
Yeah,
note, I've
yeah.
always wondered what it would be like to direct a movie that you're the main
Yeah, I
character
know.
in.
Like
It's
Mel
like
Gibson
it's like
with
cut.
Braveheart,
It's like you're like, are you like coaching yourself?
Yeah, I know. It's like, how did you do? You gotta kind of judge your
It's like
own
Costner.
performance.
Let's make
Yeah.
What
this
do you
love
do?
scene a little bit longer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah that's what.
And they just
Anyway.
cut it out of the whole movie.
Yeah. No, actually, I don't think that got cut. I think that was.
No, yeah.
I remember that in the other one.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So we're getting positives.
Let's get into positives. We always let guests start
Yep.
off with positives.
Oh, man.
So give us your favorite aspect of this movie.
Well, as you guys know, I guess as you know,
Mhm.
I love the time period. I love the Civil War time period, and I love the prairie and the Dakotas,
Mhm.
and that when the West wasn't settled yet, and so that's just a fascinating time period to me. So just the fact that it's set in that time period, and the cinematography of that movie to me is just gorgeous. You know,
Oh yeah.
you go see a movie now and it's just so fast, and everything's special effects and digital, and this, you know, it's just it's a lot slower paced movie, but it's just a gorgeous movie, and the score is just wonderful too. So those are the
Cinematography and the music, for sure.
John, you want to follow up?
You can. You want to? I mean,
Okay.
I can. You can go next.
Favorite aspect of the movie. Dang. I have to say right off the bat, this is not only my favorite movie like about the West. I would go so far as to say this is my favorite Western that I've seen. And I know that some people might get a little bit contentious about putting this into the Western category because there's not gunslinging cowboys the whole time, but I think that this deserves to be included in that genre. I mean, if for no other...
No, it's definitely a Western.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just not like a cowboy Western.
this
It's
is
more of a historical Western.
I think it brought westerns back a little bit. I don't know that there had been a lot of westerns at all in the 80s.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, there was there was Lonesome Dove and some shows like
yeah,
but not anything
big epic movies.
And
that
after
was a miniseries. That wasn't even a movie.
Yeah.
And you know, I commented to you about this while we were watching, but Costner's coming out with right now another film that's called Horizon that is about the American West, and so I think Costner shares your just deep love for this time
Like
period.
all the movies that he's directed are like set in the West. They're somehow like westerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This time he is more of like a butt kicking cowboy.
Yeah.
Which is different than the character. We can talk about
And
the
he's
character.
been in Yellowstone recently.
Yeah.
This is
He
also
did- he
like a
did
modern
Yellowstone.
western.
It's funny, he looked older in Yellowstone
He
than
did.
he did in the trailer for Horizon, which was so
Yeah.
funny. Which we will have to review Horizon. That's when we can do
Yeah,
out of the
we'll do
theater.
it.
That will be
that'd
so
be fun.
cool.
The first part, it's like a 4-part anthology. Two
Yeah.
parts are coming out this summer, and then 2 parts are
So
going to
it's
come
in
out.
the theater?
The
soon.
first part comes out June 20th or something like that.
But
the
to get-
second part comes out in August.
You had to positives. There is
Yeah.
so much to gush about over this movie.
Yeah.
But the word that keeps coming back to mind for what makes this so great is just storytelling, and that comes back to whoever did the script, which was the guy who did the original book. This
Yeah, Michael
person,
Blake.
This person
Yeah, Michael Blake. Man, you gotta tell him by his name.
Michael Blake. So thank you, Michael
I
Blake.
mean, he did, yeah.
Michael Blake. Thank you. Michael Blake understood how, like, a lot of tried and true story tropes that aren't used anymore. He knew how to get the audience invested. He knows how to make characters that are good but not perfect so that they're relatable. He knows how to affect realistic change. He knows how to make events not seem contrived and weird. And all of this comes out on screen. Obviously, it's all bolstered by great cinematography, phenomenal acting, great set pieces, but the backbone of the story is the phenomenal talent behind who wrote it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's
he won Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah,
for this
exactly,
movie,
and deservedly so, because, like I said, lots of other aspects that make the movie great, but without that backbone, it would all fall apart. And that's what I think really deserves the most credit when
the
it
screenplay.
comes the screenplay.
Yeah, there you go. What was your favorite specific part of the screenplay?
Like
the dialogue, or like how it flowed,
what
or
aspect?
What? Yeah.
I'll tell you what mine was. I loved how, I think we touched on it in the movie. The flaws of the character.
Yes, the relatability.
You see it all the way through the movie, and it's so everybody in the audience can relate to it, because that's the way it happens in life.
Yeah, Costner's character is not a butt kicking cowboy,
No.
and it's like he fights when he needs to, and it's not that he's bad at fighting. It's that, like, my favorite example of this is when he's riding to go meet the Indians, and he sees the lady, and the flag flies in his face. When he's like, and it's so funny how, like, the Indians ride up on his fort every time he gets naked, and it's like, and
the one
then,
time he puts his gun down and takes his pants off, the Indians ride up.
And then rivaling the flag scene is when he's waiting in his bed with his gun for the Indians to come, and all the kids come to steal his horse, and he gets up and he starts mumbling about something, like he just came out of a dream, and then he picks his gun and he just runs for the door and just absolutely clocks himself in the forehead and does not wake up till morning. It's like, and it balances out because Costner's character is really morally good, and so you have that risk of, like, pushing it over into the Mary Sue zone, but they tempered that with those relatable aspects, and it made it a more well-rounded character that you could get behind.
I'll bounce off you with the screenplay. My favorite part of the screenplay was how, like, this, I mentioned it during the movie, like, it doesn't have to have, like, a lot of long speeches or anything. It has just a lot of very short and simple dialogue but it says a lot. Like, it uses the narration very well. Like, the narration, like, allows you to, like, kind of get inside Dunbar's head and everything. But it's not used too much, but it's also not used too little.
Well,
like, it's perfectly used. It's one of the best uses of narration in a movie.
I agree with that, but that's so good that you point that out.
Like,
because I feel like so much, not just movies, but media nowadays can say so much while meaning so little. And this movie manages to say very little while meaning a lot.
Yeah, I know. Like, literally, just like, my favorite example of it is Wind in His Hair at the beginning says, he says, you see that I'm not afraid of you. And obviously Dunbar can't understand him. At the end, it comes back and he says, just in the same one little sentence, he says, you know that I'll always be your friend. And it just has little short lines of dialogue like that are really effective. No, there's not really any long, like, drawn out, like, monologues or anything in this movie, besides the narration, and they're not even that long. But that's narration, so that's what I really liked about the screenplay. The simplicity, but yet effectiveness.
All right, you want to take round two at positives? Do you have anything else?
Do you want me to give my? I was going to give a big one. I was going to bounce off of yours. So then you kind of mentioned this one, Mr. West, but, like, the cinematography and, like, the shot, like, the landscape shots, like, this is, like, top notch. Like, it's some of the best, like, landscape shots you'll ever see in a movie. And obviously it has the benefit of being set in the West, so it can have all these shots. But, like, there's some shots of just specifically, like, when the wagon is going out there, and just it's the wagon, and then you see the horizon, and just all these mountains, and just different, just all this great scenery, and it's just throughout the whole movie, and it keeps on coming back, and it really just gives the movie, like, a lot of life and a lot of it really draws you into the atmosphere. Like, you feel like you're in the West. Like,
and I think this is bolstered by the fact that they shot all. I was going to say they all use all practical effects.
Yeah. So they shot on location.
Exactly.
And they shot in South Dakota and Wyoming for this.
Real, like, the village is real. The bison, amazingly, are real.
I was going to mention production design.
Yeah, and that's something that is just you can't fake it.
Yeah,
you
I know.
You cannot.
And this
fake
movie,
it.
I believe, also won Best Cinematography, and obviously she
And like the
deserved that.
wolf is real. Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
nowadays the wolf would be animated.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah. Or it would be like, yeah. But anyway, I also, another little positive I really love about this movie is that it uses its budget really well with
Yeah.
production design. Like, it doesn't have like a massive budget or anything, but it uses it well. Like, it has really good, like, the fort design, like this kind of run-down fort that he has. That
And
he's
the
living
battle
in
in the
is
beginning
really
looks
looks
great.
good. The battle, yeah, the special effects, or the a lot of them are practical, I'm sure, but the effects in this movie are really good when there is battles. The battles in and of themselves are really well handled. Specifically the last two. The battle at the beginning, the Civil War battle, is really good. But it's really not as much of a battle. It's more of like he dekes them all and they just get flamed. but it was cool. But the battle between the Lakota and the Pawnee, and then the Union soldiers and the Lakota at the end, they're just really these cool hand-to-hand combat scenes. And the hand-to-hand combat is phenomenal in this movie. But it also, the battles aren't too long either. Like, they're just nice, and like they come at the right time, and they're the perfect length of time.
Yeah.
Because a battle can be too long sometimes.
Absolutely can be. Okay.
Yeah, so those are two big positives of mine:
Excellent,
cinematography
excellent.
and the battle scenes.
Well, I've
and
got
the
one
production
more.
design.
Do you have one more?
Oh, I don't
You know,
have one.
I would just say that when you're doing a movie that long and it doesn't have a ton of special effects, you have to come up with some pretty good characters.
Yeah, that's true.
And so through the movie, a couple examples would be when he gets to Kansas and that crazy, crazy guy. But as an audience, you're like, "What is this about?"
Yeah, he's like insane.
And then it leads straight into the other crazy character,
Timmons.
Timmons.
I don't remember the name of the first guy.
I
That means go this way.
We talked about that for 15 minutes. What is he? What does he say?
For context,
Explain. Yeah.
he's riding. So he hitches a ride with a quote unquote peasant to to go to the fort that he's assigned to out west. But this
Fort
guy,
Sedgwick.
you know how like you whip the horses and you go like giddy up, but like his version of this is like. And then like the horse, I guess the mules are like
Just an extremely colorful character.
And he goes down like a bike. He does it like the guy takes like 9 arrows, bro. This doesn't go
He's
down.
worried about his mules. Don't
Don't hurt my mules.
yeah, like of course the Sioux Indians are gonna understand that. And be like,
The Pawnee.
Pawnee.
Yeah.
The Pawnee suck.
Yeah.
The Cisco, the horse, is a great character.
Oh yeah, the animals.
And the wolf.
Yeah, two socks.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
every scene is a very interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Character. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it has a lot of cool like side characters too, like the Indians, like wind in his hair, smiles a lot. Like it has a lot of these characters that aren't main characters, but they have these good moments that they have with Dunbar and with other people.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I think that I actually like Kicking Bird more than John Dunbar. Like I think he might be my favorite character.
He was nominated. Graham Greene was nominated for best supporting character.
He is so convincing. He's the best performance. I'm convinced is Kicking Bird.
He was really good. Yeah.
So good. He's the medicine man who's like wants to connect with John Dunbar. He's like the ambassador type dude, and he's just so love him. Such a solid performance from whoever that was.
So what was your yet another positive? Oh, Graham Greene.
Graham Greene.
He was
you are a legend, Graham Greene.
He was nominated for best supporting actor.
You can just like feel the pride of the Indians just seeping through his performance.
Which one is he?
He's the medicine man.
That's
the holy man.
Yeah.
Kicking Bird. So my final positive on this. Oh shoot! It just vacated my brain, y'all.
Oh really? I can go.
It is gone. Yeah, you better go.
So a big positive of mine is the acting. Also, like I was talking, kind of bounce off of you there.
Of course.
But I thought Kevin Costner, like this might be his best like acting of film. I think.
Y'all know that
it's
I'm
one
not
of his
a
best
Costner
performances.
fan.
I'm not really either. Like I'm not a big fan of him. But I don't know. The movies he directs are the best movies that he acts in. Like he's really good at directing himself as an actor, apparently, because those are his best acting performances. I think he does a good job of like portraying this kind of character that has like he's kind of on this like journey of like self like exploration, kind of like discovering himself, and he does a good job of like showing all the emotions and stuff, and just like he just does a good job like acting. Like he doesn't seem like he's like Kevin Costner. He seems like he's this Union soldier who's like discovering a new life with the Sioux.
He never has an oh no moment like
and JFK, yeah.
Oh no,
he's good in JFK though. We didn't hate on him there, but that was cringeworthy. But yeah, he just delivers his dialogue dialogue in a very very good way that
Or
comes
his
across.
monologue, we should say.
Yeah,
Like this movie, this is one of the few movies you could ever watch that's like more monologue than dialogue.
Yeah.
Which
That's
and
also,
but it's good.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts of the screenplay. Is it
It's
doesn't
good.
have to have a lot of like long stuff. It's just a lot of short monologues, a little bit of
Yeah.
some dialogues between the Indians and such. But anyway, so yeah, Kevin Costner really good. Graham Greene, as you said,
Graham
you
Greene.
hit on that. Great job.
Dang,
And
so
then
good.
I even think she's not as good as those two, but Mary McDonnell, who played what stands with a fist, wasn't bad at all. She was definitely good. Like I think I agree with what I think you mentioned that she might be the one that you thought was a little bit miscast. So
Yeah.
you might have that as a negative.
Do you want to
But-
flesh that out a little bit?
Well, if it's a negative,
Well,
we can
if
save
you
it for the
have- I mean,
negatives.
her, there's a, I mean, this is nitpicking, but her hair and Kevin
Oh,
Costner's hair, 3/4 through that movie, I'm not sure.
We
Yeah.
can talk about the hair and the
Yeah,
negatives.
and the negatives.
That'll
Anyway,
be
I
fun.
thought that y'all can give y'all's opinion, but I thought that she was pretty good. I thought she was definitely not as good as Costner and Graham Greene, but I thought that she definitely held her own and that she
she did.
portrayed this like woman who's like in grief and stuff, and she just like has all these like emotions inside of her that she can't really feel like she doesn't want to like let them out, and then she meets whatever Dances with Wolves or Dunbar, and she feels like she can let out those emotions. And I really liked her story arc. She had a good story. Which final big positive is that there's some really good story arcs in this movie.
Yes,
Obviously
that is
Dunbar.
So true.
And
So
you
true.
can bounce off
There's
me
so
if
much
you want. but-
change.
yeah, obviously at the forefront you have Dunbar, who like goes out there just looking kind of like for an adventure. He just wants to kind of see the West, and he ends up growing so much as a human being, and he ends up obviously literally becoming like a Sioux Indian basically at the end in spirit. Like what's the line at the end where he's talking to the chief Tin Bears, and Tin Bear says, "I do not see. They seek this man, but that you are not that man anymore."
Yeah.
He's basically saying you are. All I see is a Sioux and a Sioux, and so he has a great character arc. His Stands with the Fist has a great story arc of just being all shelled up and letting herself out and like showing her emotions and stuff. And also, the Medicine Man, Kickingbird, has the story arc of kind of at first he's kind of tentative towards Dunbar, but then over time he rather quickly actually kind of comes to be fun. The one I'm thinking of is Wind in His Hair.
Wind in His Hair has a
Tell
better.
us about Wind in His
He
Hair.
has a better story arc than
and Kickingbird.
than Kickingbird.
Tell us about
Well,
it.
he goes from being super suspicious of Dunbar and angry
Yeah.
for lots of well-founded reasons
Yeah.
to end up being his best friend.
Yeah.
And it's funny, there are those types. I feel like the people who are most guarded are the most loyal whenever you win their loyalty.
Yeah.
And
Anyway, I thought this movie had an array of good story
Yes.
arcs. Like it doesn't have characters that just stay the same; they change.
They do
over
change.
time,
They
and that
do
makes the
change.
movie more interesting. Did you remember what you were?
Yeah, so
Yes,
I'm gonna put a cap on my positives with a couple comments. The first thing, I think you'll find this is pretty interesting. I love the way that they handled the multiculturalism in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Because there's lots of ways that people can approach this, especially with the different languages, and they did the best option in my opinion. A lot of movies would have switched over into English, like implying translation happening, but they instead. All of the actors, except the ones that are native Sioux, which I'm sure there were some, but for example, Kickingbird was not native Sioux.
No, yeah.
Obviously, the woman who played was not native
Yeah.
Sioux. Obviously, Kevin
Kevin Costner.
Costner's not native Sioux. So all of them had to learn this language to a very good degree of fluency
Yeah.
and pull it off really well.
Yeah.
And that I'm sure that was so much extra work, but they did it, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
And even if you have to read
That goes into like
subtitles-
just the quality of like the production. Like
Yeah.
they weren't willing to settle for anything cheap. They wanted to like get it right.
Exactly, and John pointed this out during the movie. They made Dunbar's transition
Yes.
to fluent very gradual, and that was so appreciated because, like, a lot of times people like learn languages instantly in movies.
Yeah.
I feel like if this would have had a less competent director, like Dunbar would have known Sioux, and then like Kickingbird would have known English, and they would have just like talked in whatever language they wanted to.
I feel like what's great about this, speaking of directors, it was like his first movie he'd ever directed.
Yeah.
Like what a debut.
They did it. I mean, what a great job.
I mean, he won Best Director.
And this is kind of a niche thing, but like, I think the woman who played Stands with a Fist did such a good job of acting like someone who doesn't know English.
Yeah.
Because that our family
but
has
what
had
did know English, but now does not.
right.
Yeah,
But like
she's-
we've had a lot of experience with trying to communicate with people who don't know English that well. And
Yeah, we just talk louder. Seems to work.
don't ask questions, but like And it's so funny because I found her performance so genuine to how that
Yeah.
actually is with people who know English just kind of a little bit.
Yeah.
And for her to be, fluent in English, native in English, and to pull that off so well, like she couldn't even speak it. Like she sounded like she knew Sioux native and just couldn't speak English. And I thought that was so convincing.
She had a really one reason I think she did such a good job was she had a hard role. She might have had one of the toughest roles of being like this person who has this real sad backstory. Her whole family was killed on the prairie, and she gets taken in by the Sioux. And then we'll just finish real quick. And then she has to like. She marries an Indian man. He dies. She has all this grief, and then this whole new white guy comes in.
Yeah.
But the whole thing you're talking about is what I want to get at. She has to like have this as an actor. She has to, as an American actor, she obviously can speak English, and she has to like learn this character who obviously used to be able to speak English fluently, but has lost that ability to speak it, and she has to like think about what that would be like.
Yeah,
and she really does a great job.
But she nails it even down to the little details. Like I swear, like there's a noise that people make when they're trying to speak English but can't, and she makes that same noise. I swear, and it's weird.
You know what it is? Like
it's like.
Oh, okay.
Did you hear her doing it?
Yeah.
Because we go, they go like, and it like.
One thing I really liked about the scene was like where she and Kicking Bird are like talking to Dunbar and they're trying to like learn each other, kind of introduce each other, is how it shows us the subtitles like as the viewer, so we know what he's saying, but Dunbar doesn't.
Yeah.
And I really like that aspect of it. What were you gonna say, Mr. Willis?
I forgot.
Anyway,
what I was gonna say was, it's such a pleasant language to listen to.
Native
American
it's not like
language.
it's not like
It engrosses you into that, to what it would be like to go back. I mean,
it's not like German. Yeah, but I had one last positive I wanted to mention, and it's that I love just all the little details in, like, I mentioned the production design is so good, but just all the details and like the portrayal of the cultures and the portrayal of just the time period. You really feel like you're in like 1864 or 1860s American West, and there's just all these great little details, and a lot of it probably is in the extended cut and not in the theatrical version as much, but even in the theatrical version there's so much of this just like camp life among the Indians and just their like rituals that they do, and you really just get immersed in that Lakota culture and also the culture of the West, but especially that Lakota culture, and that's just really cool. Like they really just wanted to capture the time period and the people that they're portraying, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So on to nitpicks.
Well, I have one more.
Cool.
And this is something that I appreciate so much about this movie is how it doesn't get political about this.
Yeah.
If this movie was made today, I feel like there's so much tension around this issue that anything that somebody would make would be making a statement. But Costner's first priority when he's making this movie is telling a good story.
Yeah.
And the nuance with which he handles the issue is like a master class. Like he shows Costner befriending these Indians, but he doesn't shy away from the brutal side of the Indians, even once Costner has befriended them. And Costner's character has to tangle with the fact that they're murderers and that they're brutal, but he learns to forgive them and love them anyway. And then on the other hand, with the white people, they're shown their brutality and their grossness and everything, but they're not depicted as universally evil. Not even the ones that aren't Costner. Case in point is that dude who was kind to him, that captain guy. And they're not.
He was wrestling with it.
Exactly, and they're not shown to just be like dirty pigs, although they do a lot of terrible stuff. It's like. That amount of, they weren't trying to make any political statement with it. They were just trying to tell a good story, and the finesse with which they handled this contentious topic is so good. And I appreciated that. So that's my final good thought on that.
Alright, so we want to move on to nitpicks.
Nitpicks.
Because I don't really call it negatives, it's more just small stuff.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts, but it's customary to let the guests go first.
It's just something that, maybe you would have done differently.
So, something we were talking about towards the end of the movie, we started wrestling with.
Nate's going to bounce off of this.
I had a big problem with this.
When he says that Kevin Costner's in, he decides to leave, and he thinks he's protecting the Sioux tribe. And we started thinking, well, does that make a lot of sense? I don't know.
I'll give you the answer. It doesn't make sense at all. So let me lay it out. So basically, he gets captured. Costner gets captured by the white dudes, and he gets busted out by the Indians, and they go back to the winter camp. And so he wants to live with the Sioux now. He loves them. He's a part of their family, but he's in the tribal circle, and he tells them, look, I'm like wanted for death now. They're gonna hunt me down, and when they find me, they'll find you, and that'll mean war, and that'll mean the destruction of the Sioux, and I cannot have that happen. So I'm gonna leave and go home. And there are so many problems.
He didn't say go home. He said he was going to
Go
try
somewhere.
to
talk with a white man who could understand.
Who could
Okay.
listen. And
There's
try.
there's different ways to unpack this, because first of all, there's
I have a little bit of
no
an
way
offensive.
in heck they know where John Dunbar is. He's not like a tracking beacon that's leading to the Sioux. So
But-
like, and then you can comment.
I have a
second.
counter.
They want to kill the Sioux anyway, so it's not like they're gonna find.
Their fate's going to be the same.
Yeah, it's not like they're gonna show up and they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, y'all are harboring John Dunbar."
Yeah.
Like, no way.
I think the thing, Mr. West, you said it's like he thinks that he can protect them for like a little while by like kind of
He
leading
does
them
what he
off
wants.
or something.
Yeah.
And like,
Also, there's no. It establishes for other reasons to the plot that all of his official documents are gone. Almost nobody knows that he's out there. There's no official paper trail for them to follow.
I do appreciate the fact that they didn't just assume that they just would find them somewhere. They actually did have Pawnee scouts that led them
they
around.
did.
That was a good detail.
Yeah.
I mean, I still like. How would the Pawnee?
So my
Scouts
counterpoint to it that it doesn't bother. I get why it would bother you, but it doesn't bother me as much because I see it like this. It's like so he gets busted out by his buds, by his
Right.
Lakota friends, and so he goes to live with the camp. They